Well, look, a very good afternoon from Sydney, Australia, the land down under. It's a land of rich contrast and diversity, and so for those of you abroad that are yet to visit, I would certainly encourage you to do so. And perhaps no better time than our upcoming Aussie Summer of Cricket, which will of course feature the Australian and Indian men's and women's teams. My name is Jay Patel. I'm a partner at KPMG in Australia and lead our India business practice here. But this afternoon, I'm delighted to be representing Indiaspora in my capacity as Australia country head, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this second Australia episode of our Tech Talk series. The first episode having featured two tech innovators from India and hosted by Indiaspora's founder and chair, the amazing M.R. Rangaswamy, earlier this month. The series has been designed as a platform to highlight the work of members of the Indian diaspora community around the world in the tech space, and that includes countries such as Australia, Singapore, the UAE, South Africa, India, the UK and Europe, the US and Canada, and ultimately to provide a mechanism for global connect and cross collaboration. Before we proceed further, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land from which I'm addressing you today, and that is the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. For tens of thousands of years, they have cared for and protected these lands, which today provide us with such wonderful amenity and opportunity to connect and collaborate, and that's exactly what we're here to do today, to connect and share our learnings and experiences from down under with all of you. For those that might be new to Indiaspora, our mission is to inspire the global Indian diaspora to be a force for good by providing a platform to collaborate, build community engagement, and catalyze social change. And so we do this through programming that spans three key pillars. First is innovation and entrepreneurship, including our Diaspora Next initiative, which is focused on the younger and up and coming generation. Second, civic engagement and social impact. And third, philanthropy. And we have global programs that wrap right around these three pillars. Australia today is home to a large and fast-growing Indian diaspora community, which has surpassed that of the Chinese and now only second in number to the British. With more than 1 million people claiming Indian heritage, our contributions are well known and felt right across all spheres of Australian society. In fact, our government has declared Australia's Indian diaspora a national asset. The Indian diaspora here is represented perhaps disproportionately in a number of high-skill occupations, most noticeably in the technology sector, where we already have a number of success stories, with many more in the making and fast emerging. Which brings me to our wonderful guest speakers, Rakesh Routhu and Kunal Kalro. And friends, I'll make no apology for the all-male cast on this occasion, because in Rakesh and Kunal, we have some of our best and brightest, certainly true exponents of technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship, doing our diaspora here very, very proud. Gentlemen, a very warm welcome to Indiaspora's inaugural Australia Tech Talk episode, and thank you so much for being with us today. Rakesh Routhu is the co-founder and COO of Aerologix, an award-winning company that provides drone services by connecting clients and pilots, essentially an Uber for drones, if you like. Aerologix works closely with the Civil Aviation Safety Authority here in Australia on airspace information and has developed a drone pilot network of now 35,000 people right around the country. Rakesh began his career in the banking and financial services industry, predominantly in IT implementation and project management in Australia and India. His experience has led him to founding R2 Robotronics, a drone swarm management technology firm in India in 2015. Rakesh holds multiple MBAs from the University of Delhi and the University of New South Wales, Bachelor of Arts from Indira Gandhi National Open University, and came to Australia as an international student in 2002. Welcome, Rakesh. Kunal is the founder and CEO at Eugene, the first company in Australia to offer at-home medical-grade genetic testing paired with expert medical care to help people predict and prevent health issues before they happen. So Eugene can sequence your DNA once and then provide you with guidance for life, shifting the landscape in genomics from point-in-time care to lifespan care. In other words, making a real impact on lives and, in Indiaspora language, a true force for good. Kunal speaks 4 languages and has lived and worked in Australia, the US, Latin America, the Middle East, and India. With a background in startups, finance, product, and commercials, he started multiple companies over the course of his career, and his focus for the past 10 years has been on healthcare. So, gentlemen, let's get this conversation started. And to all our viewers, we will allow a good 10 to 15 minutes towards the end of this session for Q&A. So please do feel free to send through your questions using the chat functionality. Rakesh, Kunal, you both come from rich career backgrounds and personal journeys, which have no doubt inspired and influenced your entrepreneurial endeavors. So could you tell us a little about yourself and I guess the journey that has led you to, Rakesh, in your case, Aerologix, and Kunal, Eugene. And Rakesh, I might start with you, please.
Sure. Thank you, Jay and Indiaspora for inviting me, and good to meet you, Kunal. I have a diverse background, so I came to Australia as an international student way back in 2002. I think internet was just starting, and I could still remember to call my parents overseas. I had to buy a calling card, scratch for the number, for $10. Way back in 2002, for $10, I could speak to them only for 8 minutes. I would only, I can only use the Telstra phone booths on the streets. I'm sure, I think you can see them still, right? I used to call like, Dad, Mom, how are you folks? Bang. That's it. So I think quite a culture shock for me. 2002, I wanted to go back, but then I persisted. I had friends at the time. I still remember in Melbourne, Collins Street, my friend dropped me, and I'm like, where am I? Catching a tram and all of that. So come a long way. Then Jay, as you just introduced, worked in IT. I was an Australian officer cadet in the Australian Army Reserves as well for 2 years. Fascinated by Army from my childhood. So I had a personal emergency in 2013, and I had to go to India with my family. I lived there for about 5 years or so, and with my friends over there, I started R2 Robotronics. Quite early for those times, I'm talking about 2015, drones, mostly military applications. So, commercial would have just started. Not many people would have heard. People would say, oh, privacy, drones, and, looking into my backyard kind of a thing. So started a drone swarm management system through an accelerator. We raised a bit of a funding, developed a product market fit, and then some traction, but couldn't proceed any further. We were told that, hey, go to Silicon Valley kind of a thing for funding, but it's quite early for those times in terms of the technology. So we had to wind that one up, and I wanted to come back to Australia. Then did my MBA. I got scholarship. Then during my MBA, I met my business partner Tom, who used to be a pilot with Qantas. He had a stint in the drone space. That didn't take him further, so we brainstormed and came up with Aerologix. Right from day one, we wanted to provide drone data on demand, similar to Jay, as you said, Uber for drones kind of a thing. Then we integrated our airspace. with Civil Aviation Safety Authority, probably one of the first few Australian companies where both our Android and iOS app we have integrated where with the airspace from the government, where every drone pilot would know where they can or can't fly a drone. And in the 5 years, we built the largest drone pilot network in Australia. We launched in New Zealand last year, looking at international expansion. In terms of capital, we raised about 5 million in seed and pre-seed rounds till now. And have team in India. We last year acquired a company out of Brazil. And in terms of the growth, in terms of revenue, the financial year just ended last month. Compared to the previous year, it's like 5x, so growing really fast.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rakesh.
Thank you, Jay.
Kunal.
Yeah, thanks, Rakesh. And super impressive growth rate, especially in the current economic climate. So, like, congrats, that's huge. Cool, awesome. So, yeah, I guess a little bit about me. My story, in many ways, is actually, similar to Rakesh's. Starting off in a pretty classically Indian immigrant upbringing. I grew up in Dubai. And that classical immigrant upbringing is really about, extremely high standards and even more exacting expectations. So at 17, I ended up moving to the US as an international student and went to university there, studied finance. Then I worked in consulting for a few years at Ernst & Young. So don't hate me for that one. And pretty quickly realized that it wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do with my life. And so at 23, I started my first company. And then since then, I've worn many a hat around this kind of founder operator role across product, across design, across commercials, sales, and of course, finance. And then at 28, a pretty singular moment in my life transformed the trajectory once again. My dad suddenly passed away out of a perfectly preventable condition. And it was a pretty challenging time for me, but it's, an unfortunate rite of passage that most of us will experience one day. But it really opened my eyes to the sheer inadequacies that exist within the healthcare system and the health systems at large, and how common and almost standard and routine of an experience it is for so many of us to be let down by our health systems. And being the systems thinker that I am and working in tech where you spend a lot of time, and I've spent a lot of time solving different problems for different industries, I really felt compelled to use this knowledge that I had gained over the years and earned over the years to try and create change in a system that really desperately needed it. And so together with my co-founder, we started Eugene, and our mission purpose is to really empower 1 billion people to unlock the knowledge in their DNA to live healthier lives. And today we do that, as you mentioned earlier, by offering at-home medical grade genetic tests. We pair that with expert medical care to help people predict and prevent health issues before they happen. And tomorrow we're creating a world where we can really sequence your DNA once and then be able to provide you with guidance for life, completely shifting the landscape in genomics from point-in-time care to lifespan care. In the past couple of years, a lot of exciting things have happened for us in Australia. For example, we recently received Medicare funding for one of our tests in November. Carrier screening is now covered by Medicare. There's a few different providers, of course, we're not the only ones, but it has really made a big difference in access to pregnancy-related genetic testing for all Australians. And it's been a big driver for growth for us as well. And we're excited to report in the past 6 months, we've almost like tripled revenues. So it's really, really exciting moment in time for us, and lots of exciting new things to come. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both for sharing that background and your journeys. I guess, Rakesh, in your case, this is sort of born out of, I guess, your love and passion for data and tech for tech, and perhaps Kunal, in your case, born out of fundamentally a deep personal experience. I was just reflecting. I mean, I guess both of you clearly had to navigate a number of issues. Finance, of course, but given the industry focus that you have, not just the tech, but regulatory would have been another big consideration. So, just between all those things, just be really keen to understand, what were your biggest challenges in that journey? Whether it was around the development of tech or navigating the regulatory. Finance, is a given, as a startup. But what were some of those challenges, and how did you overcome them? And
sure,
perhaps
I can.
Yeah, I'll go with you again, Rakesh. We'll do. Yeah.
So I think the next one, Kunal can probably take it.
Sure.
So for us, biggest challenge would be people, getting the right set of people, because yes, as we all know, startup, you need a different kind of a mindset, working long hours. I mean, don't get me wrong, but usually with Aussies and everything, it's usually 9 to 5 kind of a thing, and then like, oh yeah, I want to have a beer.
You're not supposed to say that, Rakesh. We're all very hardworking people down here.
I want to have a beer, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, I'm done. I need, my family is waiting or friends waiting kind of a thing. So, I think we have come a long way from that to, yeah, like with Aerologix, even though I'm the CEO, but I, like as Kunal just said, don the hat of a CFO, product, CTO, but out of all the challenges, as you rightly said, finance is always there, funding is always there for any startup. But besides that, for us, it was about people, especially we have teams across about 3 time zones, and biggest challenge for me is the Brazilian time zone. It's complete opposite. It's like 13 hours behind. So I do work across different time zones, and then you have certain people issues where the management, and then they're both professional as well as personal issues. So yeah, on one hand, you need a different set of a mindset. Now you get people with that mindset. You're not done yet. Then you need to you manage them. Then they have their own set of career expectations. You need to fulfill that. They're always looking for challenging things. I had things where my team, I give them a lot of challenging tasks. Some of them high performers, they do it, and they're like, "What next?" I'm like, "Where do I constantly give them like supply of challenging work?" So yeah, like will be good to hear from Kunal. So for us, it was about people. Yeah.
I think
Thank
that's
you.
probably pretty. No, you go.
Sorry, can I just going to ask Rakesh a very quick question? We've obviously got a critical shortage of tech people here in Australia, and that's been the case for at least 5 years pre-pandemic. Do you see that abating at all, and how does that sort of impact the people that you recruit around the world? I mean, do you see your team growing through increasingly growing through international recruits?
Yeah, like we have such a talented workforce, tech workforce in Australia. But with startups come challenges of funding and the initial days, since from India, Indiaspora, it's all tech, mostly within India. So we made the conscious decision to hire out of India. The Brazil acquisition happened last year. One, the mindset again. I could give them work on sometimes on Friday, Saturday, and they will do it. Um, rather than rather than I need to have a beer kind of a thing. That's number one, and number two is mostly young workforce there and they're hungry, willing to go an extra mile. But given a choice, especially after, even if I reflect back, probably I would have, if I had the money, the funding, I would have hired from Australia too, because I'm not taking away the credit, but we do work hard, Aussies, and there's a lot of talented folks here. More could be, homegrown or from migration. But for us, it was the funding challenge. As you all know, usually the salaries over there is it's less than 25-30% of the salaries in Australia. So and because of that funding challenges, we had to go. But we are currently discussing about having, for example, a product manager, a vice president of product, and set of other folks. Given that it's been 5 years, given that we raised some funding, we just are about to close another 2 million bridge round on our way to Series A, and then planning to have a mixture of people from India, then Brazil, and then Australia.
Great, thanks, Rakesh. Sorry, Kunal. Over to
I
you.
was just gonna say that it feels pretty similar. I think that's just like everyone, right? Like one of the major challenges of trying to make something happen is people, right? Try to bring a group of humans to do anything together. If you're not finding challenges, you're you're a special person, and I'd love to meet you and ask you lots of questions. But yeah, I think that people has also been a challenge for us. If I reflect on some of the things, we started just, I think we sold our first test a few months before COVID hit. So you're like sitting in a situation, yeah, it was the trajectory of the business completely changed, right? We're in person to remote, and this is just in the early days of the company. So you really haven't set anything. And so navigating COVID as a founder, navigating COVID as a leader, then navigating the supply chain crisis that came after that, the economic crisis that came after that, and whatever hell else the world decides to throw at us. Like, it's not an easy time to start a company. It's certainly not an easy time to grow a company. And so I feel like just those, and then of course, that comes with additional challenges where, like, you have a cost of living crisis that meets a significant shift in funding environments. So like the amount of money that you have available has shrunk, but the cost of living crisis means that like all your employees, they can afford 10% less than what they were able to afford last year with the same amount of money, and how much room you have in your budget to offer salary increases next to none, because there's like no investment opportunity available right now. So it's like these are some real, like, the financial component of running a company has multiple impacts, right? Like it affects people, it affects operations, it affects your ability to grow. And just, I think some of the biggest challenges for us has been navigating this chapter, trying to find efficiencies within the business, trying to do a lot with not a lot, and actually trying to turn this into a success where the last 2 years is just littered with stories of startups folding because they're running out of money, because their go-to-market isn't working in this new market environment. Their channel strategy is no longer functional. It's been a constant state of stories that are coming out. So navigating all of that, I think, has been really, really, really challenging. I don't think I have a easy answer to say, oh, this is what worked and this is how we overcame it. I think just brute force, resilience, and like a little bit crazy in the head. And so I think that's my answer anyway. And just kind of sticking through it and, being kind to yourself when you're not doing a good job and being kind to yourself when you are.
That makes sense, Kunal. And I'm going to stay with you. And just on that, so I mean, notwithstanding what you've just said, how did you keep yourself motivated through that period, and your people, your good people, to stay with you?
Yeah, great question. So I'll start with like self and then team. Um, so, because it always starts with self. I don't think you're able to motivate anyone else if you're not motivated yourself. So for me, I think having the sense of purpose as to why we're doing this and what we're trying to accomplish and the good that it creates in the world was a, nice pillow to sleep on at night. And I could like go to sleep every day knowing that, hey, we're doing good work. And so even if it's hard, we're doing it for good reasons. We're not just, yeah. We're not just taking commercial advantage of people just to make money. We're actually like trying to create something that helps people and makes money and is successful. So I think that part helped. Investing more. I don't think founders do this often enough. Investing more in your personal life and separating your personal identity with your work identity. Ultimately, like what we are doing is the work that we do. It is not who we are as people. I think if it like if we're always connecting ourselves as this is who we are, then when the business fails, we feel like failures, and then that obviously is incredibly demotivating. But having that separation, like this is what I do, but I am my own person, at least then you like put in all the work that you can. But if it doesn't go your way, it's not like you're experiencing this personal identity crisis, which I think makes it easier when the times are tough, because the times are tough has got nothing to do necessarily with you. You have to learn and continually increase your capability to take on those challenges, but ultimately it's not personal. And so if you take everything personally, then you're not really going to be in a good position to actually like take on the challenges ahead. So I think that's like from a self perspective, very, stoic principles, lots of meditation, lots of personal growth and development. I think that's where I found a lot of solace. And every person has their own path, so I'm not prescribing. I'm just commenting on what's worked for me. And then from a team perspective, I think it's really just about bringing that same sort of ideology and ethos to your team, right? Like I think we have to be transparent with the team that, hey, this is a really tough environment and this is what it looks like out there. We really like, the team that we've hired, hopefully we've hired them because they believe in what we're doing, and being honest with them that like, hey, this mission that we're on, it's not guaranteed for success, and it's no guarantee we survive like, the next chapter if we're not really, really careful and come together and try to make this happen. And I think setting that up front so that they're not surprised. Because I think it's like hard for employees. They've gone from the highs of 2021 when money was free flowing, everyone's getting all these benefits, incredible packages, incredible salaries, all these, free coffee, free lunch, free everything at the offices. And then the 2023 of the world is like, there's no money, there's nothing. And they're like, what happened? I think you have to be honest and treat people like adults. And I think that, and for some people, that's like, okay, actually, like, that's not for me. And I'm like, that's great. Thanks for letting me know. I only want people on the bus who actually are willing to get out the bus and push it forward if they need to. So I think that's part of, making sure that the team, like being transparent, being open, telling them where we want to get to, and being vulnerable that like there's no guarantee for success. So like this is really just depends on us. And if they want to be here, that's fantastic. And like, we're in it together. And if they don't want to be here, that's like also okay. It's a hard journey. It's not for everyone.
No, that's great. I think that sounds like a common sense approach, and certainly sage advice.
Yeah.
Rakesh,
Thank
did you
you.
have any? Would you like to comment on any of that around
Yeah, like I can relate to.
motivation?
You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can like. Thanks, Kunal. I can relate to you in terms of being transparent and honest, open comms. Same thing I do at Aerologix. Everyone can approach us in terms of there's no hierarchy. We share everything with the team, including clients, revenue, funding. Probably that is one reason which has helped us to retain people. In terms of usually you have a set of other founders, or their leadership style is more keeping information to themselves kind of a thing, whereas me and Tom, right from day one, we wanted to have like an open, transparent comms. When we gain their trust, they will stay with us. Also, one thing at Aerologix we have done is to give equity, the ESOPs, to everyone. So during MBA, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs kind of a thing. Everyone is still working for salary. There are bills to pay and all of that. So, we pay decent wage. Because on one hand, you have either you underpay them, but you compensate with other things like ESOPs, or you pay above the market kind of a thing. So we benchmark our salaries against the market. We pay comparable salaries, plus almost all of them have ESOPs equity. So that is one incentive for the team to actually stay back. I'm very proud to say the first 4 years we didn't let go anyone, or anyone left us, because they all had a big picture, that they believed in our big picture, that hey, we want to build the biggest drone pilot network in the world, and we want to become a big company. So everyone believed in that vision, and then they stayed. So I think that is one reason. Honesty, transparency with the team, plus also taking care of their incentives, paying them good wage, plus motivating them through ESOPs.
Wonderful, Rakesh. Sounds like a lot of thought.
Agree with the ESOP, super crucial. So yeah, second that.
Yeah, having skin in the game, right?
Mm.
And in the vision of the company, and the growth journey. Excellent. Kunal, what's next in terms of features, product, for you, and related? How do you see your innovation impacting the industry, and potentially on the world stage?
Yeah, of course. So I think the thing that we're always working towards is this concept. So today, the tests we offer, right, they're single time. So you order it, you get a sample, you provide a sample, you get your test result, and then you move on. And we do that in this category of pregnancy care, cancer risk, and heart health. But every single time you order a product, you provide a sample, you get your test result, and then it's over. What I think what we're trying to move to, and what we're working towards, is this concept of sequence once, guidance for life. And I think you touched on it, I touched on it, and that's really like where we're going. We want to be able to like take that same sample, whatever you provided the first time. When we sequence it, the data is essentially like your raw sequencing data, and we can reanalyze it for multiple different conditions, multiple different reports, multiple different use cases, and be able to sort of do that in a way so that in the future, what that's going to look like is that you've bought a test with us, you're planning a pregnancy, you have a test to understand your carrier status if you have a higher risk of having a child with a genetic condition. And when you get that test result, you've got that test result. But at the same time, we've sequenced your whole DNA. So we're able to then reanalyze that in the future. So you come back to us in the future, and now this time, maybe you want to find out that if you have a higher chance of developing cancer, or you want to understand your heart health. You're able to just order the test online, no more sample, none of that. We just reanalyze the existing sequence data, issue a new test result to you. it really changes the landscape. It also reduces the cost a lot because a big component of the cost for consumers is the sampling and the sequencing. The interpretation, of course, plays a role as well, but like it's the sequencing that is really like quite expensive at this point in time. And so we're able to then reduce the cost. So if someone's ordered a test with us once, maybe the first time, a significant investment, $1,000, the next time it's $300, $400, or $200 as time passes. And that really is where we want to get to. That's kind of like, what I would consider to be a 3-year play. Like it's going to take some time. We're going to build a few different things that kind of get us along the roadmap, if you will. Another big thing for us in the coming months and years is really going to be around channel. A big part of what we do at Eugene is really about implementing genomics within the healthcare ecosystem in a more cohesive way. These technologies that I'm speaking of, it's not that they're completely novel and they've never existed, right? Like these have existed for a decade, but the gap between research and practice is about 14 years on average. So think about that for a second. When you go to the doctor's office, the care that you're getting is about 14 years old in terms of the research. So we really need to reduce that gap when we're talking about these next-gen healthcare technologies. And so the way in we approach product, channel, market is really about how can we reduce this gap? How can we implement products and services at the right locations, at the right points in time that can provide the best-in-class care to everyone today and not be waiting for 14 years before that becomes like the standard. And so for us, what's going to happen in the next few months as well is around channels, right? Like today, we work a lot with IVF providers because that's a point in time place. And we'll see more verticals like that, like longevity clinics and things like that in the future. So I think that's what's going to be next for us. In terms of international market, absolutely. We're not going to empower 1 billion people to unlock the knowledge in their DNA by sticking around in Australia. We've got a few thoughts on like where we go. The US is a pretty valuable overall market opportunity. Comes with its own set of complications and regulations. Of course, India is always, in the back of my mind. I think a big component of that around is really affordability, where affordability it's a big thing. And like when you're selling things that cost $1,000, it's not necessarily there yet.
Just a case of ongoing R&D, Kunal.
That's right. Well, we're always trying to drive the price down. I think that's going to be a pretty critical pillar to accessibility. But it's funny that like the last 3 years, the price has actually gone up because of the economic situation that has resolved. But these things, in the grand scheme of things, are always like that.
Yeah, excellent, wonderful. And Rakesh, what do the next 2 or 3 years look like for you?
For us, like before that, I think Kunal, you would have already thought about it. I think India, a big market. Yes, there's an affordability issue. But I think if you work, I think over there, it's the economics, the volume game that will trigger, right? And if you crack it, and then that's it.
Totally.
Yeah. So for us, Jay, we are right now about to close our 2 million bridge round. Then the idea and then we want to raise our Series A. But before that, what we want to do is we're looking at India as a possible market. The drone space over there, compared to about 5 years ago, has been really hot. A lot of applications, a lot of drone pilots, because over there it's about empowering them, giving them a livelihood. Little different in terms of owning a drone. Here, all of us are interested in photography. We buy our own drone over there, little expensive. So the strategy will have to be a little different for us. If we want to go there, maybe we might have to empower them in return. It's like maybe Ola or Uber, where they empower the drivers over there to buy the car, but over a period of time, you finance it and then they pay it off. Maybe something on those lines. We'll have to study, but we're definitely looking at India. A lot of IPOs have happened in the last couple of months, last year, like big multiples in India. Even I think it's coming from Prime Minister Modi, where you would have seen him at the drone shows or this Made in India thing, where there's a lot of emphasis on empowerment, livelihood, and all of that. So we are definitely looking at that market, and also US, like no brainer, quite big. 20. I think we have about 50,000 drone pilots here versus at least 500,000 kind of a thing in US. Lot of applications for on-demand drone data, whether it's infrastructure, agri, utilities, and that sort of stuff. So also in terms of the strategy, I think best for us would be to harp on our existing clients who have an office already there. So it's an easier segue rather than starting something from scratch and then looking for clients. So mostly expansion for Aerologix.
Excellent. Well, I did have a few other questions, but the questions are pouring in from our viewers, and so I'd love for them to be addressed. So in no particular order, Rakesh, questions come in. Aerologix is a platform which provides the availability of drone pilots. Is it a platform which provides the availability of drone pilots, or does it deliver services to industries as mentioned on your website across the board?
Yeah, that's a great question because on the website, actually, it really doesn't come across, and it's a conscious thing that we have done where so it is both. So anyone right now can go onto our website and order a drone footage, could be image, video, kind of a thing anywhere in Australia, because we have the biggest drone pilot network. Pretty sure we would find a pilot somewhere nearest location. But there are a bit of a challenges if you are going up north and where little no man's land kind of thing, or in the middle of Australia, if someone wants a footage there, will be a challenge. But that is one angle where, yes, there are drone pilots on our platform, onboarded with licenses, different types of drone equipment. Anyone, even from abroad, want to get a footage in Australia, they can go and order straight away without even us intervening. The second one, which is actually our biggest focus and revenue generator, has been the enterprises, as someone said, where we provide drone services on demand. For example, we are working with one of the largest renewable companies in the world. They need drone pilots. They don't have skilled drone pilots who can go fly around this asset, capture the data. Someone is taking the data and looking into the data for faults and all of that. So again, back to the question, it's a mixture of both. We provide both.
Okay, excellent. Another one for you, Rakesh. Given the dual nature of drone technology, where it can be used for both civilian and military purposes, what steps do you believe should be taken at an industry or regulatory level to mitigate risks associated with the militarization of drones?
Didn't really get into when like the person militarization. Maybe they might mean that we are getting into probably a military similar to what happened in Ukraine, Russia, where it could be used for a wrong purpose. I believe. I'm just assuming that that person meant that what can we do to prevent such things. Australia fairly regulated, which is good because if you want to fly a drone first, you'll have to register with CASA. They would know if someone is trying to be like use it for a wrong purpose. If that person is talking about around the world, few countries are similar to Australia, like US, I think UK, New Zealand is fairly well regulated too, where they would know in terms of what is the drone used for. But according to me, I think we will go to a stage within the next couple of years, or it might already be happening, similar to my previous startup, which is UAV traffic management system, 7, 8, 10 years ago that we were building. Maybe it's already there, but that concept can be borrowed where, again, similar to an air traffic control, where you would know where any particular time of the where the aircraft is flying, right? So um, there is also this technology that's coming where you can actually disengage the drones. So I think it will take a couple of years, but we will get there where someone will say, especially those in the on the civil aviation side, is like, oh, maybe they're trying to do something wrong, disengage.
So we can expect increased regulation over time.
Definitely, because with a set of good things that drone can do, like you will be surprised. In our office, we have like my business partner Tom. He bought a drone 5 years ago, $50,000. Um, the same capabilities, uh, or the same everything, like the same capabilities and everything can be now we can have in a $500 drone. $50,000 5 years ago, now $500. You can only like you can imagine, uh, you know where we are heading to, and the level of accuracy that these drones they can give up to like 2 or 3 centimeter accuracy. So like speaking about technology advancements and all of that, similar to Kunal Eugene labs, and same thing happening on the other side with drone tech.
Indeed,
Yeah.
indeed. We'll be watching this space. Kunal, question for you. With the increasing availability of at-home genetic testing, privacy concerns have become a significant issue. How does your company ensure the security and confidentiality of customers' genetic data? And what steps are taken to protect against potential data breaches?
Sure. I'm not going to outline our entire security infrastructure on this call, but I can maybe like talk about a few things in more of an overall landscape. Before I do that, I should say that one of the things that often gets missed in this conversation around privacy is usually like the trade-off between privacy and personal knowledge. So like, I would rather not have the genetic test done so that because I'm like afraid of the risks of like this information falling in the wrong hands or like going to my insurers and things like that. um the 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 third component of this trade-off is around knowledge that benefits all of us as a community and a species. So I don't know if most people know this, but today the majority of the genomic data used in healthcare research, whether that's setting medical guidelines, association studies, etc., most of this represents people of North European ancestry. So put this in numbers, 82% of global genomic studies only include people of North European ancestry. So probably most of us in this room are of the Indian diaspora. Um, we we're represented by, well, us and 93% of the world's population is represented by about 17% of the data in global genomic studies. That is the current state of affairs, right? So when the data is that biased, it shouldn't come as a surprise that our ability to understand diseases, treat conditions is also severely affected by the bias in the data. So like it's pretty much common sense that the health outcomes are going to be worse for 93% of the world's population because of this significant underrepresentation in the research in healthcare research. So This is something that's often missed in this like privacy conversation because the privacy conversation can sometimes be quite individualized. So I think it's important to consider the third thing, which is like what really benefits all of us as a community and species at large. So let's be first things first, like who owns the data and who has access to it. I don't think investors like it when I say this, but the facts are facts, so I don't try to hide it. The customer owns the data. We don't own the data. The lab doesn't own the data. The customer owns the data. Ultimately, it's the customer's genetic information. They own it. All we can do is be custodians and stewards of that information to basically provide them with the information that they have asked for. We need to take this like relationship of trust that we have with consumers very, very seriously. And I think that is one of the reasons why this has become such a major issue, is because companies are using customer data as if it's their own, but it's really not. It is the customer's data, and we are simply stewards. Coming from like more of a medical direction in genomics, one of the things that is pretty standard, what we do is really about, and it happens in medical care all the time, which is asking for consent. We ask for consent to use a person's sample to sequence it and then provide them with the information that they've asked for us. We also don't share that information with anyone else unless they are consenting to that. So if they consent for us to share that information, their results with their doctor, we do. If they don't, we don't. We don't share this information with absolutely anyone else. The sequence data, if there is something novel found in a person's genomic data, that is like, a new variant of sorts that can benefit society, we share just that variant, which is completely de-identified from the person, in the clinical database so that everyone may benefit from this. And this is really, really important for us as a species and society. So ultimately, what I think is really, really important in all of this, and I'll kind of like summarize it, three things in like this, like kind of managing this trade-off. The first thing that we should know is that every person has to make a personal choice, whether or not they want to work with a particular company, whether they want to do a genetic test, whether they want to offer a sample up anywhere, right? Like this is a personal choice, and that's the most important thing to note. And yeah, that personal choice is whether or not they want to gain this personal knowledge or they want to like maintain their privacy to the extent that they want to maintain it. All we could do to support their decision making is build trust that we take the privacy of their data seriously, and of course follow that up by actually doing that, not just talking about it. Only use their data for the purposes that they consent to. And then finally, create products where the personal knowledge that we actually offer them is beneficial enough for them to actually take the trade-off, right? Like if we're out there like 23andMe telling people that you don't like cilantro or coriander, it's like you already know that. That's not real information that's like super valuable. It's fun, it's interesting. I've done it myself, don't get me wrong, but it's not really high value information that can like impact your healthcare choices. And so we only create products that are actually related to that.
Another one, and you've sort of alluded to this. So what will it take to reduce the delta between the majority of the population and the data that exists today? And specifically, the question is really, trying to get to, what will it take for people of our ethnic origin to have relevant clinical data?
Sorry, can you ask that again just so I can process the information completely?
Sorry, I spoke too quickly. So the delta between the majority of the population and the data that exists today, so that's 17%. Yeah, a database. What will it take for people of our ethnic origin to have relevant clinical data?
Cool. So are we talking about like what does the number need to look like, or I mean, I can talk about it in like more generic detail. How do we get there? I think ultimately more more folks have to do genetic tests, and I'm like, not like, don't necessarily, don't need to do it with Eugene. I'm just like, I mean, your choice, but ultimately more people need to do genetic tests because that data only enters the research space if more people are essentially doing genetic tests. So that's one approach. What we have seen work in the past, and I believe that India is doing some of it, which is government funded sequencing studies. So, the government will fund for 1 million people to have genomic sequencing, and that kind of creates like a national genomic data bank, if you will, that can be used to advance research. To put this in perspective, 23andMe has had more than, 10 million, like 10 to 30 million customers. So it's a pretty significant number over the years. And countries are investing in genomic sequencing to the tune of like 1 million people in their country. So effectively, the commercial products that are out there are doing a lot, like the bulk of like where the volume is coming from. And so I think that until there are products out there that benefit folks like us, it's and like we're actually able to convince Indians to use genomics and do more genetic tests, that delta is like not really gonna get addressed. So I think that's what it like really comes down to. And that's one of the reasons why I started Eugene. It was I want to like all our products um are built around like making sure that the conditions that we cover the risk faced by a multi-ethnic community, include, Indians, Asians, so on and so forth. Because if you're not doing that and you're only addressing risk faced by Caucasians, then it's no surprise that only Caucasians do the test. And I think this has been the big gap that I noticed when we first started Eugene as well. And we still, I kid you not, get labs pitching us products that they want to sell that are only relevant for a very small subset of the population. And I don't understand how they can have that conversation to me, look at my face, and think that I'm going to back it. Anyway, so this stuff does happen to this day. And I think the way to fix the delta is products that actually like are relevant for all of us, and also more people doing genetic tests.
Sure, that makes sense. All right. Well, you guys are on fire because my phone has been buzzing out of control with questions. So I'm gonna maybe and given the time, just rush through maybe a couple more, and ask you both to just to keep your responses um, short.
Brief.
But look, for both of you, there's so much talk about and reality too, maybe about the job market being at a low. What are your thoughts and advice to techies looking for jobs today?
I would say, I can go. I would say network, the age-old thing. The number of jobs that are advertised on the websites, LinkedIn, Seek, and all of that are way less than what some of the jobs are filled through your own network. So same age-old thing. Find out, network with people, go to different events, tell about your experiences and all of that. Could be initially that you might have to work for a lower salary or something. I always believe in going 2 or 3 steps backwards to go 10 steps forward. Sometimes you have to do that. So networking.
Excellent.
Kunal?
Well,
Uh, it's a good question. I think that my honest advice would be take the long view. So I think a lot of folks that are coming into the job market, it's very short-term focused, it's very immediate. It's like, what's it going to be like? Can I get the best salary today? Can I get the best opportunity today? I think is really, to me, taking the long view is really beneficial, which is to prioritize learning, which is that what opportunity is going to get me the most amount of learning. Coming out of university, coming out of school, we think we know a lot, but we actually don't know anything at all. And so we really need to prioritize opportunities that give us the greatest amount of learning. I think early stage companies actually do that really well because you like really have to thrown into the deep end, and you're having to learn and pick up a lot of things on the go. And so, yeah, my advice would be to pursue opportunities that maximize your learning.
excellent. Um, Kunal, one last question for you quickly, and that is, sorry, for Rakesh. Drones have the potential to revolutionize industries from agriculture to logistics. What are some of the most exciting non-military applications that you see on the horizon?
Drone deliveries,
Yes.
we can already see in Australia. Jay, you there? Alja.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, yeah, we just lost you for a couple of seconds. So, drone deliveries, we are already seeing that uptake in Australia, in terms of the Google Wing, and there are other folks who are entering the market. I think the unit economics is still not there. I've personally, I have done a lot of research and I've looked at the unit economics. But it is, as with any technology, it is happening, where in terms of, again, regulation, you have a different airspace just for drone corridor. And then drones fly, drop things, mostly medicals. It's already there, medical deliveries, because there it's not about unit economics, it's about saving someone's life. Then in terms of e-commerce and all of that is already happening, but I would say a proliferation of this across the world happening.
Excellent, thank you. I think we might have to leave it there. We are out of time, but I just want to thank all our viewers for attending, and of course our fabulous guest speakers, Rakesh and Kunal. Thank you so much for your time, for sharing your fascinating stories. We wish you every success going forward, and we might just circulate the balance of questions that have come through to you and see if we can somehow get short responses to those and distribute those post this session. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a good rest
Thank you,
of the day.
Kunal. Jay,
Thank you.
thanks everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye for now.